Well, good day, everybody. Pastor Tim Carscadden, Pipeline Report here from Shreveport, Louisiana. So glad you joined us today. We're going to be covering a couple topics. We're titling it today, Winds of Change, the corruption is being revealed. That was a word the Lord gave us, that the angel of winds of change was active and corruption was going to be revealed, and then righteousness put back in its place. That's one thing we're praying into today as well. Also, update on Israel, what's going on there. There's activity both in Gaza and Syria for them. Very important as America is engaged in both issues. So we're going to talk about that, as well as the Epstein files. We'll give a little new update on that, how we need to posture ourselves and position ourselves. And then on that corruption issue, we'll talk about how we should be, as believers, praying into that issue. So we welcome you here on the Pipeline Report today. All right. Welcome. We're so glad you joined us. Try to stop that music. There we go. All right. So glad you're with us. Thanks for joining us here on the Monday, the 21st day of July, 2025. Okay. Got a little. Okay. I don't know what happened there, Zach. I'm hearing myself repeat. Anyway, welcome. We're so glad technical little critters inside there trying to fight us. We hope you had a great weekend. Um, yeah, it's playing back. Are you hearing that? Okay. For some reason, I'm hearing myself repeat after I speak. So anyway, we wanna get into what we're talking about today, especially about Israel and speaking about Israel and what's going on there. And we want to speak to that about this. I have a one clip here from Israel and what is happening there. Let me play this clip here a little bit. Well, let me give you an update real quickly. There is two issues going on. Number one, in Syria, where Syria is attacking the Druze community. It's a unusual community that's in that area, and what they are doing is taking their children. They're attacking them. They go in and cut the men's beards. I think there's over 350 have been killed in that area so far, and that's right on the other side of the Golan Heights. The Druze community is asking to be annexed by Israel. They're celebrating Israel coming in and fighting for them, and I found an interview of a Druze IDF soldier who, they're not Jews, they're not Muslims either, they have their own religion, and they're so thankful, but he gives a kind of an update what's going on both on the Israel side as well as the Syrian side. So listen to this update. I think it'll give us help to pray properly for them.
Well, in Israel, they're very thankful. We don't take this for granted. Israel have shown the entire world that you guys are a light to the nations of the world. You have no reason to step in and go fight in another land, someone else's war, to defend other citizens in an enemy land from their own dictatorship, jihadist Al-Qaeda regime, and you guys did that, and we are forever thankful. I'm so proud of the IDF. I was a member of the IDF myself. Very proud of being an Israeli, and that's an example for the rest of the world. Israel is behaving right now like a local power that is dictating how the Middle East should look like, and it's an honest, dignified, moral country, and it should held accountable all these jihadists evil on the other side to that standard, and I'm very proud. On the Syrian side, I want to share with you a personal story that will actually tell you how they're feeling. I have a relative there, several of them. I've been talking to them on the front line there. He was hiding in his house. He's the young boy in the family to protect his elderly mother and father while his brother was fighting in the front against the tanks and the big guns that were coming from El Sueda to come and destroy and annihilate them. He was telling me that the jihadists are outside of his door right now, and he's fearing for his life. And I've lost contact with him for 3 days. Only today I heard back that he's alive. After I've been trying to call him, he told me they got there, they rounded them all outside to execute them. They started killing women and children. And just when they came to execute his group in his neighborhood, the fighter jets of Israel came roaring over the skies, and these jihadist cowards started running away. And in that moment, the Druze who saw that charged forward and went and pushed them out, and that was the tipping point to help them push and keep fighting for their mountains. So the Druze in Syria were sending me messages of praising, of thanking Israel. They're so happy and thankful that Israel stepped in and saved them. My relatives fled that village, by the way, under the fire and shelling of tanks and artillery, only to come back later and to find that their entire village was burned, their houses were burned and looted, people were killed in hospitals, babies executed, doctors, nurses, patients. The government there came to do a genocide on them, and the Druze know that, and the Druze know that the only one that stood to defend them in the Middle East and in the world were Israel.
You know,
What a great testimony of Israel honoring them and protecting them. We also see where they, in the West Bank, let me play this clip. The West Bank, Ambassador Huckabee came in there, and let me see, play that. Yeah, and he also talked about a church that was burned there, and he gives an update on that.
U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee visiting a 5th century church in the Israeli-occupied West Bank town of Taibeh, which residents say was set on fire by Israeli settlers last week.
It's unacceptable to commit an act of sacrilege by desecrating a place that is supposed to be a place of worship. It is an act of terror, and it's a crime.
Israel has so far not.
And this is a big issue. We're for Israel. We stand with Israel. But there comes a time when these Israeli settlers are really out of line when they start doing things like this. And there was a death of a Palestinian as well by the Israeli settlers. I don't know how that happened, but it was in that report. So let's make sure we pray that even the radicals there, these are what we call the radical Israelis, who just think that, they don't want Christians there either. Not just the Palestinians, they were Palestinian Christians, but they don't want any evangelicals there, any of those people. They want them out of the land. They want to purify them. So they're really like a hyper Pharisaical spirit that's on them. But we want to pray for that, but especially in that battle there. Also, Israel is about to go into a neighborhood in Gaza and start an incursion there. And they have not, in the 600 plus days of war, they have not touched this neighborhood. It's one of the last Hamas strongholds. And they're going in there. It's along the coastline there. And they're going in for the first time. They do believe most of the hostages are in there because Israel's not attacked that area the whole war. So the Hamas knows that's a safe place to keep the hostages. So we need to pray definitely on that for safety for the hostages. We believe there's 20 hostages alive. That's the estimates that most of the analysts are saying. The rest are already dead. They just want their bodies back. But as we're in this moment where we're seeing this, we need to pray for the soldiers, because this is a very densely populated area where there's lots of citizens in that area, and they need to be safe. And then they're asking for certain parts to be evacuated, but also that means that the hostages may be on the move, and we need to pray for that safety in Israel. So that's our Israel update. So let's get into what we titled the show today about, which is corruption is being revealed, because that's something that we gave a word about, that we're going to see this happen, where God's going to allow the change to come by revealing the corruption that is happened along the way. Now, this weekend, Tulsi Gabbard shared the information that they're finding out about the Russian hoax and all the different things that the Obama and all the other cronies of him, that when they saw Trump was going to win, they were trying to find a way to attack his presidency the first time. We on these platforms, we saw it all along. We were talking about it the whole time he was in office. We saw that it was obvious what they were doing, and but now they're having documented evidence. And this is what I saw in the spirit. Now I want to warn everybody. There's no guarantee that there'll be any prosecution, and I want to bring some real balance to this, because I saw President Trump's X account, and they've done some memes and done some videos where they show Obama being arrested by AI. It's an AI things in the White House, and they make him get on his knees, and Trump's laughing at him and all that. We do not want to celebrate that. We do not want to celebrate a former president on his knees in the White House and the other president, Trump, laughing at him. So let's pray that that stuff, that nonsense, stop. We do want justice. I think Tulsi's the balanced person on this one. She makes some great statements here about what is happening. So I think that we need to pray into what she's seeing, and then also that it be a balanced view. So let me share this, and it'll give some insight as far as what she's seeing along the way, and we need to agree with what that is as far as what the Lord's saying in that area. Let me bring this up here, and I'll play this clip for us and hear her report.
In the months leading up to the November 2016 election, the intelligence community agreed that there was no intelligence that reflected that Russia was trying to hack the election in favor of either candidate. The evidence showed, the intelligence showed that, again, Russia did not have either the intent nor the capability to be able to impact the outcome of the United States election. So it was very striking when we look back again at the documents that I declassified and released that shows there was a shift in early December, the first week of December. Again, another document was produced by the intelligence community, a president's daily brief that was consistent with every other assessment that was done previously leading up to the election. Russia did not, this is after the election now, did not attempt to affect the outcome of the American election. That was never published. Hours before it would have gone into President Obama's President's Daily Brief, it was pulled by a senior level intelligence official saying that they had to pull it because they had received new guidance. The very next day, this meeting was called, a National Security Council meeting, bring together all of the senior leaders of President Obama's cabinet, and the topic that was put forward was a sensitive matter. The tasks that came out of that meeting was coming from President Obama directing the intelligence community, then Obama's ODNI director Clapper, to produce a document, to produce an intelligence assessment that detailed not if, but how Moscow affected the outcome of the election that had already occurred, electing Donald Trump to the presidency. This document that they published in January of 2017 was the foundational groundwork that they continued to reference over and over and over again to enact this years-long coup against President Trump. In the months leading up...
She used a strong term there, coup, and we don't know if that's the actual facts of whether it was actually a coup or just to undermine him. Let's be careful with that. It's possible. All things are possible when you get to Washington. But this is a strong issue. I want the church, the body of Christ, the ecclesia, the governing body of the body of Christ, to stay balanced on this. I saw this happening, and there's no guarantee this will ever go to court. There's no guarantee that anybody will be held accountable. That's the history of Washington, D.C., on both sides, not just, on the right or left. Think about that. I'm talking about issues that happened in Washington. I'm not talking about what happened to President Trump in New York and in Florida and all that stuff. I'm talking about in D.C. So, as one congressman says, D.C. has a capacity to bury things, and that's something that we need to see broken. I think one of the things you see along the way is the Dems. There's parodies out there where they show them constantly saying nobody's above the law, nobody's above the law, and the fact is uh, that's true, but it seems in DC that's not always true. So we want to pray accordingly that if there's something there, if there was something so devious, so evil that it could lead to a coup, an overthrowing of a president, that would be uncovered. But ultimately, that righteousness gets put in its place, and the point of that is there that the DOJ and the State Department, and so forth, they need to find these people that are embedded in these departments, and this is where they're going to need the Lord's help. And that if they're still active in these type of activities, that they be uprooted. We call it the swamp. You can call it whatever you want, but it is that it be uprooted from these departments so that this will not happen again. We do not want to see this type of activity on either side. We want to see our government walk in peace, and we trust what they're doing. And we're just not there right now. We still have this, and we'll get into this a little bit later. And Comey's daughter, the former attorney general, his daughter, this was in charge of the Diddy case in New York, as well as the Epstein files. And she did a horrible job with the Diddy case. Every analysis was that should have never been the charge, the RICO charge they had. That there was other charges they could have done and done better. But and she's the one that sealed most of the Epstein files. So they removed her. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that needs to happen, so that these embedded dark things that are in our government, they get uprooted. That's the winds of change we're believing for right now, and I want to agree with that. Zach, you got one thing you added to that topic?
Yeah, just a few things. One, it's obviously we're seeing that it's taken a while for this stuff to be kind of unearthed. I mean, 6, 7 months for them to actually, once she's in office, to dig in and see what's there and go through it. But what has come out about these emails and these findings is that when you actually read them, the reports that she talked about being brought up by Obama, what it did is when he changed that meeting, he was getting daily briefings with the actual accurate intel. And I think it was December 7th that the date changed. He basically canceled those meetings. The intel that was coming to them that got ignored, that got pushed under the rug, um, was not, being able to be seen. Now, it's a question of, and obviously, I think spiritually we understand the motive there, but the reality is they're gonna have to be able to prove it. So when they sit there and say a coup, that's very hard to show. Now, they might have known, somebody might have, kind of let the let the cat out of the bag and let it to him. But if he never saw it and if you can't prove it, you can't sit there and say that he 100% was in a coup and everybody in his administration was a part of a coup. Even though they made moves to quote unquote look like it in Tulsi Gabbard's opinion. And so, but more of it is more of a blockade because remember at the time, President Trump wasn't president at the time. He was candidate Trump. He was just real estate mogul. So to sit there and say that it's a coup is a bit of a far reach. And the reason we have to say that, we need to say that is because the right, just the moderate right, those who used to be Democrats are blowing this out of proportion. There have been others who are trying. A lot of it's social media, just hype, trying to create viewership, et cetera, things like that. And so we have to be really careful what we're listening to, who we're listening to in this season about this stuff, because it's obviously inciting Trump, but we don't want it to incite people. And hopefully the people around Trump can kind of help kind of cut this stuff down because that video that he played was that was a bit much. And he's done a lot of good things lately, staying off of social media. But this weekend he kind of went on a bender. That's how he snuck away and got his phone from his handlers a little bit. And so This is not the best move from Tulsi to use the coup word. It's more of a blockade, I guess would be a better way of saying it. But the reality is one, okay, she turned over the files to the DOJ. The DOJ's got to go through it and clean it up, and actually find something that can be prosecutorial. And then the question is what point of presidential immunity does he have? Does it then fall down to the lower levels? Oh, the intel was bad. The intel wasn't given to me. Yada yada yada. How can he get out of it? Because this is a double-edged sword. Okay, they went after Trump. Now Trump's kind of trying to want to get his own revenge. But the reality is, the better thing is just culturally just to uproot everything Obama did, the Democrats did, and let them just go off into the wind. Because this could be a whole you go after Obama, you could unearth a whole
Yeah.
lot of stuff. And so this might be one of those things that, okay, we understand, we see how they did. And I think the best thing for them to figure out is who that is still within the government agencies that allowed this to happen and worked on it is still there.
Yep.
Can they be
Absolutely.
marked for later administrations
Yep.
to know, stay away from them, et cetera, things like that. So there's more to this than that meets the eye. And let's not, oh, we got him. Like, let's hold off there,
Yeah.
because there's calls for coup, which means a possible inciting of violence from the right, a possible, civil war. There are some people saying that. I know that's kind of hard to believe from a lot of people, but the reality is there are people jumping to that conclusion, which
Yep.
it's a bit much.
I think our focus should be on who's still there, rather than focusing on Obama and all that. Hey, if he's guilty, he's guilty. But the fact is, we need to find out who's still there, because if we can deal with that, we'll stop anything from the future happening. Here's the panel from Fox who talks a little bit about the topic, kind of gives a different insight.
Claiming that Russia was responsible for this, for hacking the election, but it wasn't Russia. It was Barack Obama who gave the orders for them to take this and run with it, which, of course, stayed with the country for years.
Yeah, it was the predicate for everything that we're seeing for the past almost 10 years. You started with the Russia hoax. That led to the indictments. That led to the impeachments. That led to the lawfare that we saw for years. We all witnessed it. And you know who was in bed with the Democrats and Obama? The media. This was the same media that was pushing this entire narrative that the president was somehow a Russian asset. We all know it was false. We all knew when he was president of the United States what he did to Russia. He gave Ukraine Javelin missiles when Obama gave them pillows and blankets. President Trump was the person that was taking in all the shots from the Democrats from 2016, from the second he came down the elevator. And we all knew it was BS. And now we have Tulsi Gabbard that's able to put out the facts. And this is why if you look at the confirmation hearings, who got it the worst? Tulsi was one of the people that got it the worst because they knew exactly what she would do. Uncover the biggest scandal in politics, the insane, asinine Russian dossier that we all knew was false, but led to lawfare and indictments and the raiding of his home. Every American should be up in arms right now.
So he makes some good points here, and I think Tulsi is the right person, former Democrat. I don't remember Zach, but I think she was a Democrat at that time when all that happened. So
she was a Bernie supporter at that
that's
time.
right. Yeah. So I think she's a good person to speak to this. So I think what he's saying here is everybody knew this. Everybody basically knew this. Let me keep playing here a little bit more.
You said it right there. We all knew. And in the last hour, we were discussing this, and we all said we all knew. We knew it, but the media was covering for them, and we couldn't get anyone at the FBI. They all, they all wouldn't admit guilt. Everybody lied. What do you do in that case? What's the way to handle this going forward? Is it prosecutions? Is it a special prosecutor? Is it trying this more in the media that wants to keep covering it up? What do you think?
Well, you tried in the media, and guess what the media did? They hired all these people. Brennan, all of these people, they're all hired, MSNBC and CNN. So the media is going to cover for their colleagues, of course, but we have a DNI and we have a Department of Justice and Attorney General Pam Bondi who's going to look into this and hold people accountable. I am sure of that. I worked for Pam Bondi when I was 22 years old. This is a woman that takes crime seriously. She is not going to abdicate her responsibilities because she doesn't want the Washington Post to say a bad thing about her. She's going to go over it because we have to deliver justice. We have to give the American people their due, because we're the ones, the will of the American voter from 2016 on, who voted for President Trump in overwhelming majorities. had to deal with this. Our country was so divided from these investigations. Like I said before, it was the predicate for everything. Obama's hands are on this. And what is he doing now? He's over here with his wife doing a podcast, walking without flip-flops on the beach, acting like his whole career was everything. And
Well, now we're getting some opinion there, but the point that I think is important here is that this is uncovering. And I think he's right. Pam Bondi is going to go after this. President Trump, if anything is being said from his post this weekend, it is kind of a sign that he's willing to go down this road. I want to, for me, I'll say this. I'm stuttering a little bit. When we go after legislation, when we would lobby, we would go in and attack the things we knew we could win. There's nothing valuable about a media or a moral victory if you're not going to change the laws or you're not going to bring justice. And this is where we don't want to spend energy, finances, money, time chasing something that's never going to come to fruition and come to justice. You want to find the areas that you can and begin to deal with those, pull down the structures. This is a picture of a spiritual stronghold. A stronghold is built one brick at a time, and it becomes a part of our life, right? That's what a stronghold is. Spiritual, you can have it for regions, etc. Well, you have to dismantle that strongholds. We pull down strongholds, and everything that's as lofty has exalted itself above the knowledge of God. So what we got to see is these strongholds be pulled down so that they don't have a stand to continue to do such actions. And I know it's hard to put trust in the justice system. With Comey, I'm going to say he's the FBI director, and that whole battle in the past. But now we have a chance, and those people are still in those departments. I'll say one more thing. I'll let you speak, Zach. When I have gone to talk to people within those departments, this is years past, one of the things that they would ask us to pray for was the embedded people that are in all the different departments of DC that are on the dark side, and they're deeply embedded in those departments. And many of them they're lifers. They've been there forever, and it's literally impossible to get them out. And then also there's openings that President Trump needs to fill so that there is people of light that come into those positions to battle those others in the positions of darkness. So this is if you walk around DC or drive around DC, you just see building after building of government agencies. Well, within those buildings are hundreds and sometimes thousands of employees, and they all have ideologies at some level. And some of them have deep ideologies, and they are running those departments, leading those departments, deflecting information in those departments. We need a cleansing. We need the winds of change to go in there and blow and begin to uproot the corruption so that life and righteousness can come in its place. I have enough hope to believe that can happen. I know you think I'm shooting for the stars, but I might as well. Let's put our faith high in that issue.
Yeah, and when we look at the language that was used through the Obama administration, is their focus, and John Brennan and Comey, was to focus on the narrative rather than the actual truth, which is kind of what we saw and what the reports are showing about why these accurate reports were being buried, which is very, very concerning, meaning that they didn't want to look like they were wrong. And the viewpoint, if you remember back to the Obama administration, was that we got to be on the right side of history. Democrats said that a lot. Obama said that a lot about being, quote unquote, on the right side of history. There have been some Republicans who have said that is yes, you can't worry about being on the right side of history. You have to just worry about presenting the truth and let the pieces fall where they may. But then number two, when it comes to getting the stuff to the DOJ, is who's corrupt there? Who's blocking things that are in there? Obviously, you still before last week, James Comey's daughter involved in the prosecution, and a lot of people are getting upset with things that are happening in Washington D.C. But there's things also happening outside of Washington D.C. And to this point on this case is, let's look at like Amy Coney Barrett. And the reason I bring this up is because in the past we've looked at her and we've given some question and concern about, okay, she ruled, quote unquote, against Trump. But what she's done, and we've said it before, and I'll say it again, you got to honor her, is she wants to make sure that if something is passed legally, that it holds muster. So if she's denying a case and or ruling quote unquote against the Trump administration, that means that the Trump lawyers, DOJ lawyers, are not arguing their case properly. And that's one of the things we need to pray for moving forward. That's where you got to give it to Pam Bondi on these last couple wins she had through this season of SCOTUS hearings and cases before the Supreme Court. They argued it properly. And to your point about there are no moral victories in the media, we have to go back to how Giuliani and Sidney Powell handled this stuff coming off of the 2024 election. Or 2020 election, excuse me. And we have this stuff, presenting it for you. There's other lawyers, and it's Molly Hemingway from she's on Fox a lot, Real Clear Politics. Or no, Frida, one of the I have to forget the organization she's with. But she wrote a book called Rigged, and she kind of exposed this from Giuliani of saying, look, you can sit here and say you have all this evidence. And a lot of that evidence, unfortunately, even Dinesh D'Souza's Mules documentary kind of got disproven. I know a lot of people were very happy of that, but it couldn't hold up in court. And that's what we were talking about is, okay, it looks good, it feels good, it sounds good, but can it hold up in court? And then there's to the judges of, look, this is one of those things where lower elections really help getting these people up in office, because what's been happening over the last decade or two, really 3 decades, you've had Democrats with their ground game getting these judges in these offices. This has been from before. Mitch McConnell did his best to prevent Obama from doing it at his end of his term, and very thankful for that. Even though he's made his mistakes, we can argue with him. It's a reality of it's little by little, and we have to continue to see this overturning and this uprooting to get out. And then hopefully, even if there are some who kind of are on the fence, they can hopefully can choose on the side of justice and righteousness here to be able to get America back to even what Tulsi Gabbard said of getting back to a democratic republic where we can be ruled by a set of principles rather than the way the wind is blowing.
Yeah. Okay, let's pivot here. We'll talk a little bit about the tariffs. Everybody's criticized it. They're having a hard time because recession is not coming. I'm saying the left's upset. Prices are not rising like they think it should. Look, I want to say this. This is something we need to pray against, I should say. The left, it wants our economy to fail for political reasons. And we need to celebrate our economy and the blessings. Remember Jeremiah 29, when God told the Israelites while they were in captivity to pray for the welfare of the land in which they were in. They were being held prisoners, and God said, pray for the economy, pray for the blessing of the country. So we must pray for that. Steve Bessett did, he made a statement when he was being challenged in court, not in court, but before the Congress. And he calls it this. I like this, what he says here.
A new version of TDS, which I would call tariff derangement syndrome. Many on your side seem disappointed that there is no inflation today. As a matter of fact, we saw the best inflation numbers since 2020. So there has been nothing passed on. There has been no tariff recession. So no inflation, no recession due to tariffs.
And so I think his point is good made there, but also I want to tell you, I found this as well. This is a story I think it's from Alabama or Georgia. I can't remember where it's from, where an actual farmer talks about what tariffs have done for him. So listen to this report.
Fixture here on top of Chandler Mountain in St. Clair County for about 60 years. Chad Smith says he's seen a lot of changes over the years and not in a positive direction.
Less than 20 years ago, there was over 10 farms here on this mountain. Now there's barely 5, probably going to be 4 within a couple years. And as another 20 years goes by, there's going to be less and less.
Blake Thaxton with the Alabama Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association says the U.S. agreement with Mexico, first set in the late 90s, was meant to protect U.S. farmers, but it wasn't working.
There's been loopholes that the Mexican tomato producers have taken advantage of and continue to price dump or lower the prices below the cost of production here in the United States and in Alabama.
If they send the tomatoes over and it's supposed to be a set price and they need to move tomatoes, well, they may just give a load of bell pepper for free for them to take the tomatoes. So it's never really worked.
Now, without that agreement, the U.S. has a 17% tariff on tomatoes from Mexico.
So a lot of these tomatoes will actually be going out today.
Smith says he's already seeing a more level playing field.
It's only been 2 days now, and we've actually have a lot more calls of people having interest in doing business. And the price hasn't even changed.
Food security is national security, and we need to be able to produce our own food here in the United States.
Smith tomato.
I think what he said there is food security is national security. That's a very important point there. And you don't want to see this. And this is what President Trump has tried to fight for: manufacturing and bringing jobs back to America. We have farmed out so many things. And I want to say this, the poverty level of America is increasing massively because we don't have those middle income jobs and so forth for many people. You, in our state of Louisiana, if you ever go to a medical facility, the level of poverty, the people having to go there who are on Medicaid and all different things, it's astronomical. It's more than we realize, because there's no place for these people. The people I see when I go into these places were former people that I would see working at a assembly line or doing some job, probably making at that time would be equivalent to about $30 an hour now. Not down in the minimum wage area. They have great benefits. They have great retirement, all those different things. Those jobs are gone. We don't see them. And then when we look at the farmers and everything, they're gone too, because we farmed everything out. So this, I think what he said there, it really grieved me. He said another farm probably gone lost next year. But now with the tariffs, what we're seeing is an opportunity, a level playing field, and these guys have a chance. And when you are subject to other countries for your provision, we saw that in COVID through China and other places, then that is a national security issue. So this is where there's a real balance here, and we want to pray for our American farmers, our American lands, that they begin to prosper in that area. So I think that's something that I think is a good point.
Yeah, and we got to remember the comments best that are talking against and talking down is people who are hypothesizing and theorizing based upon what quote unquote should be happening via certain economic advisors and what they're picking. And a lot of people stepping up against Trump and what he's doing is because they've made investments in bets for the economy to crash. And so that's why they're speaking about it, because they've created this worldview. And in theory, they're not wrong. But in reality, this is where theory versus law really just kind of shows the difference, because when you actually apply this theory, does it hold up and stand the test of time? And this is what economics is all about. And for whatever reason, they're not being intellectually honest and understanding, like, okay, we thought this would happen, but it's not. And obviously there's the biblical standard of the borrower is slave to the lender. But there's also the thing of where, like in China's case and all these other cases, a lot of these countries, if the U.S. economy crashes, so does theirs. And Trump knows that, and he's calling this bluff that the Democrats believe, oh, we have to surrender everything to China. Okay, they're powerful, great. They also hold a lot of our debt, but if we go under, so do they, because their economy is going under because they can't support and provide anything because it's a communist regime, and you can only force people to do so much. But that's besides the point. But to the tariffs and everything that's happening right here in America for these farmers, this is kind of blowing up in everybody's face, who one said these tariffs would work, but then two saying these trade agreements, in the past would work. And this is a reality of even those who are claiming that the tariffs shouldn't be working. They're also saying the free markets should work for themselves, and you don't have these problems. And this is an issue with those who are really talking against these tariffs, is that their idea of a free market is whatever happens, happens. And the reality is basically they think everybody's going to play on the same level playing field. That's not the case. And you're seeing this here, even with this trade agreement, is Mexico and the farmers, they're trying to get one leg up to position themselves, because they know ultimately they're trying to get in this market. They're trying to find a way to compete. And that's what Trump's trying to say. Is like, look, this is not you may have free trade, but it's not fair trade.
There it is.
Here, and that's the thing we have to remember is, look, if we're going to talk about, having open markets and free, one has to be free. Okay, great. Let's agree both sides benefit, but let's be fair. And that's where the huge rub, number one, with China and a lot of other countries, even this small case, because I remember when I was in business college, this tomato case, I can remember this. We debated this up and down in almost every economics class, because there would be those for it, there would be those against it. And this is the reality. We're seeing the reality of this in the sense that there are those who have come to an agreement, but they're not upholding their end of the bargain. And that's what Trump is dealing with. That's what those tariffs are
That's right.
leveling the playing field and make it a fair trade. Can this sustain for the long term? We'll see. But I think in this season, it's something that's been beneficial. And we kind of have to seek the Holy Spirit to help guide us, and hope we can pray for Trump. That would be our prayer, to make sure he can guide us through this season.
And it's revealing the lack of fair trade. That's the main thing it's revealing. So now you can begin to readjust everything, but at least the revelation's going. Okay, we'll close today's program today talking about a little bit about the Epstein files, because it is a divisive issue for the right, conservatives, and it's very important. Trump did get some good counsel, where he now has asked for the unsealing of the grand jury files, which I said earlier, Comey's daughter, former FBI director Comey's daughter, who was on that case, is the one that wanted them sealed. So she's gone now. And that kind of quailed a lot of the screaming and all. And we put this on our Pipeline Facebook page, where Dershowitz talks about what's really going on.
Is the government hiding a client list or anything that the Trump administration could release tonight?
No, there is no client list. There never has been a client list. A client list suggests that Jeffrey Epstein made a list of people to whom he trafficked women. What there is a redacted FBI affidavit from accusers. There are several of them, from accusers that accuse Jeffrey, that accuse various people of having improper sex. And that has been redacted. The names of the people accused have been blacked out. Now, of course, because I was the lawyer and I did all the investigations, I know who all these people are. I could figure out, based on everything that I saw, who Mr. X is, Mr. Y is, and Mr. Z. I can tell you right now, none of them are public figures who are currently in office. Some of them were previously in office. Some of them are dead. But there is no client list. And the redactions could be undone if you go to court. So many of the things that are being suppressed by two judges in Manhattan. And they're doing it largely to protect the alleged accusers, who are, in the view of the judges, victims, even though we don't know what their actual status is. But the judges have issued orders, which is why I can't disclose things I'd love to disclose, saying that you can't disclose this information. But Pam Bondi and the Justice Department and Donald Trump are not responsible for that. I don't know of any information that they could disclose that they haven't disclosed. Now, maybe there is some, but I'm simply...
So we could go on. He makes a great point there about I think this is what we need to hear, is what's really going on behind the scenes. And I think he does a good job of that. And then why the Dems are just jumping on it. Let's be honest. They're jumping on this because it's an opportunity. They don't really care about the Epstein files. They just see they need something to attack Trump with, and this is their opportunity, and they're going to use this. And even Cuomo's brother, Chris, makes a statement here. Let me play this real quick, and then I'll let Zach speak to this, because this is a big issue. Here's what he says.
Making a mistake going all in on this Epstein BS. You did nothing to release any information about this case on your watch, okay? And you watched a woman go down for Epstein's crimes and did nothing to add to any sense of accountability for anybody else then. So going all in now is obvious and gratuitous and ugly, okay? And look, I get the play. This is bad for Trump, so we got to be all in there. You need to give the majority reason to believe that you would be better, not that just he is worse. Do you understand? That's the key. Not MAGA sucks, okay? Not that they lied to you, MAGA, so vote for us, because MAGA was formed in part out of desperation for feeling that you on the left lie and don't deliver. So this battle of attrition is just going to create two losers. My suggestion is be less about your opponent and more about restoring opportunity, less about who is woke. And
well, he's giving his opinion on the left and what they need to do to fix their problems. But even on the morning show with Joe Scarborough, he had Congressman Riskin, if you remember him, he's on the J6 committee, and he confronted him, which is really interesting, because I think this is a new strategy. I mean, a new thing that even the left wanted to deal with. Let's hear what they had to say.
We could have gotten that from 21 to 25 when Democrats controlled the DOJ. Why? It was a crisis then. It's a crisis now. Why didn't Democrats call for it from 21 to 25?
So, I mean, you'd have to go back and look specifically at particular prosecutorial decisions and what was taking place in terms of the other cases. So I don't know. We could try to reconstruct that record. But the point is that Donald Trump is the one who has led the crusade to say that that Epstein, who was his very close friend, and there's all kinds of pictures of them.
She has no answer.
So she goes on, Megan goes on about that issue. But I think the fact is they don't have an answer. And there's the point. They had all those years to bring out these files. They didn't care about that. Now they care about it. So let's see it for what it is. This is exposure. This is exposure of the corruption. And let's ask for truth to be revealed. If there's something in there that's illegal, and you're having all this stuff, it goes as far as saying that Epstein was a Mossad agent, a CIA agent. We don't know any of those things. What we do know is it's got the enemies using this to be divisive and to divide even those who are trying to see a transformation in our nation. And we don't need to go down that road. This is something that we need to pray that God deals with this, and let us be the ecclesia and begin to decree that this is not going to be a divisive issue. And I think what is hidden being revealed will help if they were able to uncover some of these from the grand jury trial. I don't know. I think what Dershowitz said is very important, because you do protect those people who have been attacked, because if you do that, then they can be exposed in areas that they don't want to be exposed in. So I think it's a very tricky moment in our history.
Yeah, the question is, to Alan Dershowitz's point, is everybody's saying, oh, it's the deep state, it's the FBI, DOJ. It's actually nobody within the administration. It's two judges in Upper East Side, Manhattan, who are protecting people. Could be the minors, because they themselves will probably have to agree to let this stuff be out, because it could lead back to them. So there has to be agreement there. So to sit there and say, oh, Biden, all this stuff, why didn't everybody, even if Obama even if the President Biden administration wanted to put it out, what they put out is the same thing Trump and Pam Bondi and the DOJ put out to all the MAGA influencers earlier. Everything's redacted because that's how the DOJ and FBI received it.
Yeah.
And so let's be clear on that. Let's understand that that's what's coming out. And let me say this about Alan Dershowitz. He is no fan of Trump, does not vote for him, does not necessarily want him to see Trump, quote unquote, win. He's on the side of truth to a point. And he's the one who says he's seen this. He's also said that who's on the list, or who is claimed to be on this formulated list that's there from the accusers, is no one really in office anymore. So we're kind of barking up a dead tree. Would it be good? I think people would be satisfied to know the truth. I think Trump's finally realizing that. That's why he's offering and kind of positioning for there to be a full investigation to get to the bottom of this, so it'll shut people up. But I also think to Trump's benefit and to what he would view as a detriment, is this is kind of a humbling moment. This is showing Trump that even those who support him, they'll turn on him in a heartbeat if there's an issue that they disagree with him on. And so hopefully this can be kind of a balancing act here to where Trump can realize, okay, these people are, motivated by their own agendas because they want to themselves be, proven right. They don't want to be on the wrong side of this because the crimes and things that Jeffrey Epstein and Giselle Maxwell are a part of and what they have been convicted of are just completely horrendous. And nobody disagrees with that. And I think everybody in the positive step forward of protecting minors wants to get to the bottom of this. But the reality is with those minors who have come forward and worked with the FBI and worked with everybody is, one, do they want to go back down this road again? Is it kind of one of those things, okay, he's gone, she's locked up, it's kind of past them, let's let them heal. Let's also look at the case in Florida where they were able to prove that he was who he was and get him registered and get him on the books, and yet he still did what he did. That's kind of another issue. So there's a lot of pieces at play, and to sit here and say we know that the deep state is hiding something, that they're all this. There was even a Republican congressman come out and say this city just hides everything, talking about DC and people there. It's like, look, this goes beyond DC. And there could be actual reasons for why this list isn't being put out. We don't know.
Yeah.
Even Alan Dershowitz doesn't say. He says, oh, they're protecting the accused, but it could also be that they're protecting the innocent as well because they don't want to have this come forward. And if they don't want to have this come forward, there's kind of nothing we can do. And not only on top of that, the Washington Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times, they're liberal journalists who are pushing this and causing all this rife and causing all these quote unquote MAGA Republicans to just cause all this infighting for nothing. And to Trump's point is like, are we talking about a dead man? Like, he was convicted, he was put in jail because that's what could be proven. And so was Giselle Maxwell. And so the reality is look, you have a bit, if there are still people out there who are like this, you still have this problem because they're not the only ones. There are other people who do those same crimes. And there are organizations like Tim Tebow's organization who are fighting this. That is still out there. And so this is a small speck on a huge problem. It'd be like a fly on an elephant's butt. Like, you got a bigger problem. You're focusing on this dead fly that's on the elephant's butt. And the reality is you still have the elephant that's in the room that you need to deal with, and that's not dealt with.
And I think with the last one, the uncovering the winds of change, corruption, I think one thing with the big, beautiful bill, they're cutting funding to NPR, to PBS and all these, because and I think Senator Kennedy did well in his hearings, is why is the government funding, journalism that's one-sided? Obviously, it's very clear. I think they said 90+% of all workers at NPR and PBS support Democrat. They give to Democrat donors, et cetera. They're obviously left-leaning on everything. So the cutting is there. And then we saw Jason Cobert's show, the late night show, gets cut. And they said because of finances, which is true. His show's lost $40 million, but it was nothing more than a mouthpiece for the left. And I think the winds of change are shifting, and these people are losing their voices and their mouthpieces. And I think it's incredible. Somebody did a good parody here, our little from him from 2017 to 2025. You got to listen. This is pretty good. Let me turn this volume.
President of the United States. Donald Trump has been sworn in as President of the United States. I know. Listen, we're just as confused as you are. Joe Biden did it. I sat down and just started crying with relief. And Evie said, you never have to talk about him again. And then I cried with joy. After a bizarre and vicious campaign fueled by a desperate need not to go to jail, Donald Trump has won the 2024 election. Next year will be our last season. The network will be ending The Late Show in May. Donald Trump has been sworn in as...
You go woke, you go broke. That's the... I'm sorry. Go ahead, speak to that, Zach.
Yeah, he lost $40 million. That's why. That's why the CBS is cutting him. If you lose that much money for that big of a network who caused problems, especially when they edited a clip and cost them $12 million. So there's $52 million that they're in the hole. Not only talking about other things. other monies that they're losing because just their TV shows and all their other shows are just bombing altogether. And so, yeah, that's why they lost it. And somebody pointed out, it's like, look, when you're bashing half of the American public at least, um, for the decisions that they made, yeah, people are going to stop listening, and people are just tired of it. And Greg asked a good question on this Epstein case. We got to go back to it. He says, so justice was served based on all evidence judged. Justice was served on evidence that could be proven in a court of law. There was a lot of evidence and accusations made, but unfortunately, some of them didn't hold up in court because when they were asked by multiple prosecutors, the stories changed from those who were accused. Now, does that mean that they were lying? There could have been multiple reasons as why, misremembering, trauma, etc., things like that, to why it couldn't be proven. And that's why this is a very sticky case. Going back to the Epstein stuff and with this CBS shows, is this goes back to is they believed this stuff, and even a lot of the MAGA on this Epstein, they believe this stuff, but it's what is reality. You know, Colbert saying, "Oh, Trump's going to jail. That's why he wanted to run." It's like, well, that's your opinion. Where are the facts? And going back to Ben Shapiro's famous line, is facts really don't care about your feelings, and it's costing major networks millions and millions of dollars, and $52 million just in the last 2 years. They're going to make a decision.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening today. Thanks, Zach. Thank you, each one of you, for listening today here on our Pipeline Report. We hope it was informative for you, help you pray appropriately. I do want to say on my podcast today, I shared a dream I had yesterday. I'm calling it the bottle and book dream because I saw Psalm 56 in the dream. And here's what it says. He said, he put my tears in a bottle, and are they not in a book? Speaking of the book of remembrance of Malachi 3:16. And he says, and then my enemies will turn their back in that day, and I will call, and I will know that God is for us. We need to remind ourselves that. And so God has captured our prayers, our tears, our cry on this show, especially on this platform, where we've provoked as many people, encouraged as many people as we could to stay on the wall and fight for our nation, get it down the pipeline, send it to other friends so that we can all pray together for our nation to be saved, that we would see corruption uprooted and righteousness put back in its place. That's the cry of our hearts. So we thank you for that. We thank you for your partnership, your sowing into our ministry. We had our business meeting yesterday at our church, and part of the reason we're on this platform right now is because of your sowing, and I want to thank you for that. You can always do that on our app or on our website, but I'm not trying to raise offering today. I'm saying thank you so much. We celebrated what God's done for us in this last year, and we thank you for what you're doing. So God bless, and we will see you next Monday at noon Central Time here on the Pipeline Report.